Okay, so have you ever felt like, you know, learning English is this just like huge mountain you just don't have time to climb?
Yeah.
It's like life is always throwing these obstacles in your way, and it's just those English words you pick up that kind of vanish.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people listening can probably relate to that.
I think so.
So that's why we're doing a deep dive today. We have a fascinating resource, I think, and it's a YouTube video transcript from LEP Learn English podcast.
Okay.
It's called 15-Minute Daily English Language Learning Routine F Podcast and Chill Beginner.
Okay.
So, I mean, even the title itself is really suggesting a practical approach to this very common problem.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is how it addresses that feeling a lot of people have,
Yeah.
that language learning requires just like these huge chunks of dedicated time,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And this routine is offering a different perspective.
Right.
It's suggesting that consistent short bursts can be really effective.
Yeah, I like that.
So our mission today is to break down this 15-minute plan. Figure out those key components and really understand why each step is designed to help you learn, even with a busy schedule.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right, so let's start with the first part,
Okay.
the warm-up.
Warm up.
Now, a warm-up for language learning.
Yeah, it sounds a little unusual.
It does sound a little strange, right?
Yeah, it's not like we're, running a marathon of grammar exercises or anything.
Exactly, yeah.
But the idea here is to gently get your brain in that English learning zone.
You just ease into it.
Ease into it. So the routine suggests this quick vocabulary warm-up, just 3 minutes focused on 5 new words.
5 new words.
Why 5? That seems like a very deliberate choice.
It is. It is. And it really touches on some of the fundamental principles of how our memories work.
Okay.
Psychologist Miller did some research on short-term memory
Right.
and suggests we have a capacity of around 7 plus or minus 2 items.
Okay. Interesting.
So by focusing on just 5 words,
Yeah.
you're working within a manageable range for your brain to effectively process and retain that new information without feeling overwhelmed.
So it's about working with our brain's natural limits,
Exactly.
not against them.
Exactly.
And the transcript even hints that, trying to learn too many new words at once can lead to burnout.
Yes, definitely.
And then nothing really sticks.
Yeah, you just get overwhelmed and then nothing really gets absorbed.
So we pick our 5 words. What's the recommended way to actually learn them in this short warm-up?
So the routine outlines a few key steps.
Okay.
Writing each word down,
Okay.
saying it out loud, and then crucially using it in a simple sentence.
Okay, I like that.
So you might wonder why that last step is so important.
Yeah.
Research in vocabulary acquisition, such as the work by Nation,
Okay.
has consistently shown that encountering words in meaningful contexts, like sentences, is crucial
Right.
for deeper understanding and retention compared to just memorizing definitions in isolation.
So it's not enough to just know what the word means. You need to see how it's used.
Exactly. You need
Right.
to see it in action.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And the transcript gives an example, a great example with the word journey.
Yeah, a good one.
So you write it,
Right.
say it, and then you use it in a sentence like, I'm excited for my journey to the mountains.
Perfect.
Seeing it in that sentence, you really grasp its meaning and action. Where do you even find these 5 new words to work with?
So the routine suggests some really accessible resources.
Okay.
Things like apps such as Quizlet,
Yeah.
which often have pre-made vocabulary lists, or even a good old-fashioned vocabulary book,
Right.
which can be a great way to discover words related to specific topics.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I like it. So after that quick 3-minute vocabulary boost, the next part of the 15-minute plan focuses on listening practice.
Listening, yes.
So important for getting a natural feel for the rhythm and flow of English.
It's true.
The suggestion is to dedicate about 4 minutes to listening to a short podcast video or even a song.
Keep it short.
Keep it short, yeah. Now, for those just starting out, the idea of diving into native English can feel a bit daunting.
I can imagine. Daunting, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's natural to feel like you're missing a lot of the vocabulary,
Right,
and that can be discouraging.
right.
But the crucial point here, as the routine emphasizes, is to focus on catching the general gist,
Okay.
the main idea, rather than trying to understand every single word.
So it's about the overall message, not getting bogged down in the details of every single syllable. Why is that approach so effective, even if you're not picking up every single word?
Well, this aligns with the comprehensible input hypothesis,
Okay.
which is a key idea in language acquisition.
Okay.
The theory suggests that we learn best when we understand most of what we're hearing or reading,
Okay.
even if there are a few unfamiliar elements.
Okay.
So by focusing on the overall meaning, you start to infer the meaning of new words and phrases from the context.
So your brain is actively piecing together the puzzle.
Exactly.
So you're learning to understand from context.
Yes.
Picking up clues even if you don't have all the pieces.
Yeah, and it's a much more natural way of learning anyway
Right.
than, having to look up every single word.
Exactly. It
Okay.
sounds much less overwhelming than feeling like you need a dictionary constantly by your side.
Exactly.
The transcript also recommends some specific resources for English learners.
Yes, it suggests podcasts like BBC Learning English
Okay.
and ESL Pod,
Okay.
which often feature, clear conversational language aimed at learners.
Yeah.
And for music, the advice is to choose slower songs with Imagine by John Lennon,
Okay.
given as an example,
Okay.
as these tend to have clearer pronunciation
Right.
and allow you to follow the lyrics more easily.
Right.
And again, that 4-minute time limit is there to keep it manageable.
Right.
As the routine wisely puts it, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew.
Exactly. Yeah, don't overwhelm yourself. All right, so we've warmed up our vocabulary. We've done some listening to get a feel for the language. The next 4 minutes are dedicated to actually speaking.
Yes,
Now, that's the part that can make even seasoned learners a little nervous.
for sure. For sure.
So what kind of speaking practice can you realistically do in just 4 minutes?
Well, the core of this speaking practice is simply that. Practicing speaking aloud.
Okay.
The routine suggests starting with something very accessible, like talking about your day,
Okay.
what you did, what you're going to do, or answering simple everyday questions.
Like, what did you have for breakfast? Or what are your plans for the evening? Just basic conversational starters.
Exactly. Yeah, the main goal at this stage isn't perfection.
Yeah.
It's about developing the habit of actually producing English,
Right.
getting your mouth and your brain working together to form those English words and sentences.
Right. It's about building that muscle memory for speaking, but what about mistakes?
Yeah.
How do you know if you're saying things correctly? That's a big hurdle for a lot of people.
That's a very valid point, and the routine offers a really insightful, albeit potentially initially uncomfortable technique,
Mm-hmm.
recording yourself speaking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That does sound a bit vulnerable. Hearing your own voice recorded can be a strange experience.
It can be.
Yeah.
But the routine rightly calls it a game changer.
Okay.
Because when you listen back to yourself, you often become much more aware of pronunciation issues, hesitations, or grammatical errors
Yeah.
that you might not notice in the moment of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
It provides a more objective perspective.
I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah,
You become your own teacher in a way.
exactly.
The routine even mentions some research behind this, doesn't it?
Yes, it references research by Horowitz,
Mm.
which suggests that self-recording is not only effective for improving pronunciation,
Okay.
but can also help reduce anxiety around speaking over time as you become more familiar with your own voice in English.
So while it might feel awkward at first, it can really boost your confidence in the long run. Following that, the routine moves into 2 minutes of reading practice.
Okay.
Reading seems like a natural next step. You're seeing the written form of the language, which can reinforce vocabulary you've learned and help with understanding sentence structure.
It all ties together.
It all ties together, yeah. What kind of reading material is recommended for just a 2-minute slot?
So the suggestion is to read a short paragraph.
Okay.
The routine provides a few options for finding these, picking up a book, skimming a news article for a brief piece, or even using language learning apps that often feature short stories or text snippets.
Okay.
The key is that it's something you can reasonably engage with in a couple of minutes.
So it's not about tackling a whole novel in 2 minutes.
No.
What should the focus be during this short reading session?
So the primary focus should be on both pronunciation and understanding. The routine specifically recommends reading aloud. This helps to connect the written word with its spoken form, further improving your fluency and reinforcing how words sound.
Reading aloud makes perfect sense for connecting those two aspects of language learning.
Exactly.
Should you be stopping every time you encounter a word you don't know?
So the advice here is quite practical. While you should aim to understand the overall meaning of the paragraph, the routine suggests looking up just 1 or 2 unfamiliar words that stand out to you. These can then be added to your growing vocabulary list, your word bank.
So a very targeted approach to vocabulary building during reading.
Exactly.
Not getting bogged down trying to dissect every single new word you see.
And the caution is against stopping for every unknown word,
Right.
because that would quickly eat up your limited time and could also disrupt your flow and comprehension of the text as a whole.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so we've gone through the vocabulary warm-up, listening, speaking, and reading. That brings us to the final 2 minutes of this 15-minute daily routine, which is dedicated to a wrap-up or reflection.
Reflection.
Reflection seems like an important step to solidify what you've just done.
Yeah, it's about taking a moment to really process what you've just learned.
What exactly should you be doing in these last 2 minutes?
Well, the routine outlines several key activities. First, it suggests quickly reviewing those 5 new words you practiced at the beginning, as well as any new phrases or sentences you encountered during the listening or reading.
Right.
This is a brief mental check to see what you remember.
Like a quick mental recall exercise.
Precisely. And it helps you identify which words or concepts stuck easily and which were more challenging.
Right.
The routine also highlights the importance of connecting your learning to your personal interests.
If you encountered a word related to a hobby of yours,
Yeah, make that connection can strengthen your motivation and recall.
that makes perfect sense.
It-
Learning things that are relevant to your own life definitely makes them more memorable.
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another valuable part of the wrap-up is tracking your progress.
Okay.
The routine suggests using a notebook or an app to jot down any new vocabulary you've learned during the session. Seeing that list grow over time can be a really encouraging visual reminder of your efforts.
It's like building a little treasure trove of new English knowledge.
Exactly. And the routine also mentions using a journal prompt as part of this reflection.
Okay.
Yes, I give it a great example. Today I learned the word journey. I'll use
Yes.
it tomorrow when I talk about my weekend plans.
Oh, I like that.
Writing a sentence like this helps to actively reinforce the new vocabulary in a meaningful context, much like you did in the initial warm-up.
Right.
It's another way to engage actively with the language, and the overarching message of this entire 15-minute routine, as the transcript underscores, is the critical importance of consistency.
Absolutely.
Even small, regular efforts can add up to significant progress over time.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Now, the video transcript also highlighted some key vocabulary
Yes.
and answered a few recurring questions.
Yes, it did.
Let's quickly recap those for our listeners to really solidify their understanding.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the key vocabulary introduced in the video included terms like burnout.
Which in this context means becoming extremely tired and ineffective from trying to do too much.
Yeah, trying to take on too much.
Nailed down, meaning to successfully understand or clarify something.
Yes.
And give something a shot,
Just try it out.
which simply means to try something.
Exactly.
We also had hang on something, meaning to pay close attention to or depend on something.
Mm-hmm.
Bite off more than one can chew,
Yeah.
meaning to take on a task that is too difficult.
Yeah, a classic.
Dive into something, which means to start something with a lot of enthusiasm and energy.
Yeah, jump right in.
Get the hang of something, meaning to learn how to do something effectively.
Yeah.
Stumble across something, meaning to find something unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
Look up something, meaning to find information about something, often in a dictionary or online.
Yeah, good old dictionary.
And run out of something, meaning to have no more of something left. Really useful everyday phrases.
Very practical. Indeed. And regarding the questions, one key one was, why keep the warm-up to just 5 words?
Yeah, why 5 words?
And the answer, as we discussed, relates to our short-term memory capacity and the goal of manageable, sustainable learning.
And another important question was, how can you make the most of listening practice?
Yeah. How did you get the most out of it?
The key takeaway there was to focus on understanding the general meaning rather than getting stuck on every single unknown word, which can actually improve your overall comprehension.
That's a big one.
The video also addressed why speaking practice is crucial even in small amounts.
It is. It is.
And the answer is that it helps you develop the habit of producing the language
Yeah, you just gotta get used to speaking.
without feeling overwhelmed. Finally, the question of why reflection is important was answered by highlighting its role in reviewing learned material, identifying areas for further focus, and ultimately aiding memory retention.
Yeah, all these elements are really important.
All vital elements that contribute to the effectiveness of this brief but impactful daily routine.
Yes, I think it's a really well-designed routine.
So to bring it all together for you, this 15-minute daily English learning plan inspired by the LEP podcast breaks down into roughly 3 minutes for a focused vocabulary warm-up,
Okay.
followed by 4 minutes of listening practice,
Okay.
then 4 minutes dedicated to speaking,
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes for reading a short passage,
Okay.
and finally 2 minutes for review and reflection on what you've learned.
Love it. Yeah, and the real power here is the idea that you don't need hours and hours of study to make progress.
Exactly.
Consistent, short bursts of focused effort.
Right.
Like this 15-minute routine can be surprisingly effective.
In building your English skills over time.
It really can.
Absolutely.
It's about making language learning a realistic and sustainable part of your daily life.
Breaking down that massive mountain into a series of manageable steps.
I like that.
So for you listening, we encourage you to think about how you might integrate this 15-minute routine into your own day.
Yes.
What part of this plan sparks your interest the most? Or perhaps seems like the biggest challenge?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the perfect place to start exploring. It's all about finding what works best for you on your own English learning journey.
Exactly.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.